According to a young athlete named Chelsea Mitchells, and she's pictured up here, runs track at Canton High School, Connecticut. She lost multiple state championships because her state's policy ignores the biological advantages of males over females in athletics. She maintains in a written statement that I'd like to include in the record, and I want to partially quote, "It isn't fair and it isn't right. We need separate sports categories based upon biological sex in order to fairly compete. This is what Title IX was intended to protect and preserve. If biological males are permitted to compete in female sports, there will no longer be female sports as we know it," end of quote. So to my panelists, how big is the difference between young men and women in sports?
The difference is massive. The biological effects that occur at male puberty create an unbridgeable gap between men and women, specifically with regard to contests of strength and speed. So the organizational effects of testosterone, even if the bioactive level of testosterone is later brought down, the permanent organizational effects of testosterone give men larger hearts, larger lungs, vastly greater muscle mass, bone density, fast twitch muscle fiber, all things necessary in contests of strength and speed. And in her own state, where two biological boys with no standout achievements on the boys' team were able to compete with the top female athletes, in 2019, they walked away with 13 out of 14 championship title events.
Some transgender individuals will use puberty blockers prior to adolescence, while others will not. What can you tell us about this subject and how it could affect transgender athletes who participate in women's sports? And you may have touched on it a little bit already, but expand on it if you want to.
So in my research, I have come to the realization that puberty is certainly a major dividing line in terms of the permanent and unbridgeable advantages it confers on male bodies. So I think that, it's sensible to arrive at a nuanced solution so that transgender children and youth can fully participate in sports, which I hope they can and should always feel safe and secure and able to do. But the Equality Act allows for no nuance. It applies a wrecking ball to female sports by insisting that any male who claims to be female for any amount of time, in his senior year perhaps, when he's eyeing college scholarships, has full legal entitlement to walk onto the girls' team and take one of those.
To you also, some have argued that the Equality Act has loopholes that could enable criminals to enter sex-specific settings, like girls' runaway shelters, and exploit vulnerable girls who reside in the facilities. This is because the bill is overbroad and changes the legal definition of the term sex in a way that erases women from anti-discrimination laws, education, and from the playing field. So, do we have reason to be concerned that anyone might abuse the Act's legal protections? I assume there's a huge disincentive to do so because transgender individuals face a lot of discrimination, but are there loopholes in the Act that bad actors could exploit to hurt women or girls in these shelters?
You don't need to be transgender to take advantage of this Act. This is not about transgender people being violent. They aren't violent. That would be a libel against them. This is about the fact that the law is so overbroad that any male felon can announce he's a female, make absolutely no changes, and transfer to a woman's prison.